Hot to record. 2, 3, 4, 5. Greetings and salutations, because I figured I haven't suffered enough and I must make other people suffer with me. We're going to have story time with Lansing again.
Okay, we were debating between me either telling another joke or Star brought up a an autobiographical lantern story that I realized I hadn't shared in Raven's server.
Whoa.
And now it's going to be immortalized.
Yep. And I know I shared it in the Lord of the Rings server, and I know Kikyo and Waffle, and I think Anna reacted to it, and were like, "Oh my, what? What? What?"
I'm going to be
So,
swearing at you at the end, aren't I?
at the
Um,
very least, maybe somebody else in the family?
Okay, okay.
Oh,
so,
boy.
um, so, when I was a kid, something I always loved as small child was fish tanks, and in fact, when I lived in Connecticut, which would have been 30 years ago, whenever we went to the pediatrician, the way mom would keep me calm is there was a fish tank in there, and I would look at it, and it's like fish. So kind of like Meg, really. But when I was 6 or so, it was my birthday, and my parents were like, "Yeah, you don't need more toys," which is true. I was a damned obnoxious spoiled child. But so for my 6th birthday, they actually got a fish tank. Um, I can't remember the size of it. It was not a it wasn't a small fish bowl. It was an actual this is a fish tank. And so we had fish tank with decorations in it, get the water in it, and we actually got several fish. And the thing about our family fish tank is we very rarely had fish that lasted particularly long. Don't know what it was. Just like we would get fish and then most of them would die. We had three long runners. We wound up with three that lasted longer than a year. And the first one was actually in the first batch of fish. It was a Plecostomus. It was just named the Plecostomus. And for those of you who don't know anything about fish, a Plecostomus is basically catfish, algae eater type thing. But it did pretty well in our fish tank. It thrived for a good couple of years. It eventually met its end because of our second long-running fish.
Oh, no.
This isn't the messed up bit of the story. We're nowhere near the messed up bit of the story.
Oh, oh, boy.
You're gonna have to take this trip with me, folks.
Yep.
So the second long runner we got, and this was after a couple of batches of fish, including the suicidal lungfish that Uncle Bill got us, which is a story in
Oh.
and of itself. But one day my dad was like, "We need more fish." So Dad got a couple, and one of them was a species of fish called the Oscar. So we got this Oscar. Its name was the Oscar. We gave up on naming the fish. They they were just their species name after a point. So the Oscar was our second long runner. And within the first week, we were down, the Oscar was part of a batch. We were down to just the Plecostomus and the Oscar. And then within another week or two, we noticed the Plecostomus is just friggin' gone. And the Oscar is significantly larger. So the Oscar wound up being the second long runner, and after the Plecostomus mysteriously vanished,
Oh boy.
um, we got our third long runner, which was the armored catfish, which wound up being the third long runner because it's patently inedible. It has poisonous spines. Like we looked one day and like there was a nibble out of its tail, and the Oscar was looking mildly annoyed. But for a long time we just had those two. Anytime we tried to get more fish, they would just vanish for reasons that we are not entirely aware of. The Oscar friggin' ate 'em. So we just had the Oscar and the armored catfish for several years. Can't remember how long it was. I was a kid, and like when you're a kid, time just feels differently to you. What feels like a long time as a kid, when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's like, oh wow, that went by quickly. Anyway, one day, like, we heard a noise from the fish tank. We go down and check on it, and it's like, oh, okay, the fish are still there. It's fine. But after a couple of days, we noticed something. The Oscar is swimming around kind of slowly. Also, the Oscar is kind of bent at an angle.
Huh?
This is still not the messed up bit of the story. It gets ever so much worse.
Oh.
So what we think happened, and we're not sure why the Oscar decided to do this. The Oscar attempted to jump out of the tank. Maybe it was going after the cat or something. We don't know. But the tank had pretty solid lid to it. So what we think happened was the Oscar jumped out, hit the lid, hit it sufficiently hard enough that it seriously injured its back. So, like, it was still alive, but it wasn't swimming around very much. It was clearly in pain. But like it kept hanging on for like a month maybe. But like we're looking at the Oscar, and it's clearly suffering. And like one day my dad, who's been the main one taking care of the fish tank because we were dumbass kids, he looks at the Oscar, and he just can't stand to see it suffering. So I'm going to post a question to the other people in this video.
Oh no.
What would you do with the fish at this point? It's a fish suffering and you want to put it out of its misery. Star, what would you do?
Flush it down the toilet.
Viola, what would you do?
Take it out of the tank? I don't know.
Raven?
I don't know. I've never had to put a fish out of his misery before.
The most common answer to that question that I hear is that flush it. You just flush it. Guess what my dad didn't do?
Oh, do that. Gee.
Nope.
So Dad takes it out of the tank, and now to everybody who is watching this in the future, whatever you're thinking probably happens after this point. I can assure you with almost 99% certainty, whatever you're thinking happens is wrong. Because it's ever so much worse. So what my dad does, to try to put the Oscar out of its misery is, he takes it out of the tank. and takes it out to the backyard. And he figures, fish. I mean, we all know this. Most fish don't do well when they're out of the water.
Mhm.
So Dad figured, like I take it out of the tank, I take it into the backyard. It passes on, and I bury it. It'll be fine. Keep in mind, Courage and I are like, I don't know, 9, 10, around then. And like we're in the family room watching this happen. So Dad takes it out to the backyard, and the Oscar is gasping and flopping and gasping and flopping
Mhm.
and gasping
I think
and flopping.
I get a feeling I need to put a warning on this video.
You might. That
Yeah.
might not be a bad idea. Because it still gets worse.
Oh God!
Oh boy. I thought that warning might be nice.
So Dad is staring at his beloved Oscar, who he doesn't want to suffer anymore. And he realizes, I have made a huge mistake. We live out in the woods at this point in time. So, Dad walks over, gets a big tree branch,
No.
Oh no. Don't. Is that what
And-
it is?
This takes a while, but he proceeds to bludgeon the fish.
Why?
And it wasn't like a one whack thing either. It took several whacks. And like Courage and I are sitting downstairs and we're watching this and we're like, what the how was this the good option?
I am envisioning that
Of
scene.
all of the options you had, this is probably the worst.
That scene from Faulty Towers, where Basil Fawlty starts to beat his car
And
with a branch.
that is Lantern's fish story. To put the fish out of its misery, my dad wound up beating it to death with a big ass stick.
Just one moment.
I
6,
think we
7. Okay, that's 13 damage of some sort.
13 psychic damage to everyone who has heard this story now. But yeah, like the entire time, Dad has like this solemn expression on his face. He looks down at the fish. Oh God, what have I done? I know, stick. No, Dad, what are you doing?
Oh god. Oh no. Is there a witness?
And now everybody's traumatized.
I
Oh no.
don't know how to word the warning for this one.
Warning, this is why. Just why.
Also,
So, do you want to do this joke as well, so we can clear the air? Because if so, I'll stop this video and start to do one for it.
I mean we can. The joke will take a while.
That's fair.
Okay. So yeah, that is arguably one of the more messed up stories I've told on any of the servers, but
yeah,
like
what?
like I know when I was telling it in the Lord of the Rings server, like it got to the point where it was like this is so horribly messed up that like Waffle was like, oh my god, this is hilarious, but also what the Christ.
it's not getting to me, but at the same time, it's horrible. I can recognise that. It's fucking surreal. And at the same time, I come up with the quotes from The Simpsons, stop, he's already dead. But it's not! Which one makes it worse?
You see, the thing that comes to mind for me is a quote from the Venture Brothers. Oh no! What happened to me today is like a nightmare. What happened to my Oscar, that is my life.
Okay, that seems a good spot to cut this video. Thank you for riding some massive ride for us. We'll come back with something hopefully better.
Okay.